This is stop 6 on the Regina Cyclone self-guided walking tour. The Regina Cyclone of 1912 was Canada's deadliest tornado, with 28 dead and 10% of the city's population left homeless. This tour will lead you through locations in Regina's downtown, starting from the Hotel Saskatchewan and continuing north through the downtown before completing the tour at Victoria Park. Along the way, you will learn about landmarks, both past and present, that mark impacted locations affected by the cyclone's destructive power. The next location on our tour is the former site of Knox Presbyterian Church, 1844 Lorne Street. The original Knox Presbyterian Church was located on Scarth Street and 11th Avenue. Initially building a 54 by 42-foot brick veneer building for $5,500 in 1885, the congregation soon became too large for the facility and moved to larger digs on 12th Avenue and Lorne Street. The site of their first church building became the home of a new post office, which still stands today. Regina was little more than a string of tents belonging to prospective settlers, wide-eyed dreamers, and scheming land speculators when the Presbyterian Church held the first church services in the new community in 1882. The Presbyterian Church was held in a livery stable tent by Reverend J.W. Mitchell the first Sunday in September 1882. Most of the worshippers, who booted several horses out of the space in order to hold the sermon, were railroad construction workers. The congregation soon took up a new home in a portable structure donated by the Board of Home Missions, but the congregation grew by such leaps and bounds that it was housed in numerous quarters until the construction of the first church, including McCusker's Hall and McCusker's blacksmith shop. By 1885, the church building on Scarth Street and 11th Avenue was constructed, but by 1905 that facility was also too small. Reverend Dr. John A. Carmichael laid the cornerstone in 1905, and Knox Presbyterian Church started holding services in its new building in 1906. In 1912, the 6-year-old building suffered massive damage during the Regina Cyclone. One of the two funnel clouds blew out all the windows, collapsed part of the roof, and rendered much of the building into a pile of rubble. Knox Presbyterian was the third and last church in the path of the Lorne Street funnel cloud. Since June 30th, 1912 was a Sunday, the death toll of the tornado, Canada's deadliest, might have been even higher had the tornado struck in the morning when services were taking place, rather than at 4:50 in the afternoon. Repairs to the church after the cyclone struck were swift, with the building restored to its original glory within a year of the cyclone. The Presbyterian Church's long-time presence in Regina was not without its strife. In 1925, the Methodist, Presbyterian, and Congregational churches voted on the possibility of union. The United Church of Canada was formed from this multi-denominational union. In Regina, the Knox Presbyterian congregation was severely split on the decision. The vote was 544 for union, 286 against. Dissenters, led by Judge W.M. Martin, who would later become Chief Justice of Saskatchewan, left to form the First Presbyterian Church. Church services for the new congregation were held at the City Hall Auditorium and occasionally at First Baptist Church, in one of the first occasions of Regina's religious denominations sharing worship space. Regina's religious denominations have frequently shared space. The television show Little Mosque on the Prairie, which depicts a mosque sharing space in a church, was based on an actual arrangement between a Regina mosque and a church. The remaining members of Knox Presbyterian became Knox United Church. This left two united churches within one block of one another in the downtown area. The two churches retained autonomous congregations until 1951, when the decision was made to merge the two at the Metropolitan United's 2340 Victoria Avenue location. The new congregation became known as Knox Metropolitan United Church. The old Knox United Church building at 12th Avenue and Lorne Street was demolished to make way for the SaskTel Telecommunications Center. Across Lorne Street to the west is our second stop, the Telephone Exchange Building, now SaskSport, at 1870 Lorne Street. Directly across Lorne Street from the Knox Presbyterian Church location was the Telephone Exchange Building, site of one of the most miraculous tales of survival of the 1912 cyclone. Regina got telephone service almost immediately after its founding in 1882. The first telephone exchange building in Saskatchewan was located in Peter Lamont's bookstore on South Railway between Hamilton and Rose Streets in 1887. The telephone operator was Emily Lander. The first telephone office stood on the corner of Lorne Street and 12th Avenue, directly across Lorne Street from Knox Presbyterian Church. It was constructed in the early 1900s by Snyder Brothers. No image of the first building survived in the City of Regina Archives' collection. This image is of the replacement building, constructed in 1912 and 1913. When the cyclone struck the city on July 30th, 1912, the telephone operators were one of the few groups working in the downtown on a Sunday afternoon. The building was razed completely to the ground. The telephone operators fell into the basement and were immediately covered with rubble. This image shows the utter devastation that resulted to the building. However, not a single operator was killed during the cyclone. Rescuers were soon on site and pulled the women out of the basement unharmed. The replacement building was constructed over 1912 and 1913. The new facility was home to the Saskatchewan's first automated dialing system, which was in place from 1914 to 1955. Like many of the buildings constructed in the wake of the 1912 cyclone, the new telephone exchange building was over-engineered in an attempt to create the perfect tornado-proof building, and features steel beam construction, concrete, and pressed brick facing. The building was designed by Story and Van Egmond in a neoclassical style reminiscent of Italian palaces. It features an elaborate entrance, round windows, and an elaborate cornice. The building has been on the Heritage Holding Bylaw since 1989 and has been a provincial heritage property since 1999. A commemorative plaque on the building lists more details about the property. SaskTel moved out of the building in the 1950s, eventually building a facility across Lorne Street on the site of Knox United Church. A variety of government facilities occupied the building after that, including the Board of Education. The current tenant is SaskSport. The next stop on our tour is a piece of cyclone-themed street art at 1860 Lorne Street. You can find the City of Regina on Twitter and Facebook, or visit regina.ca for more information about Regina, including more history and heritage content.